Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Beth. I am a 37-year-old attorney living in the DC area with my husband. And for today's video, I have a very exciting swatch video to do for you. So I know this packaging here doesn't look all that exciting, but I wanted to share with you how the new Natasha Denona My Dream MIDI palette arrived. So this is how it arrived from Sephora in this outer box, and it does have a batch code to the extent it ever becomes relevant, but basically this outer packaging helps to protect the palette. So this has this like corrugated lining inside. I think Natasha Denona started shipping with those at some point because some of her palettes would arrive broken, so it's an extra kind of layer of protection. So this is the outer carton of the My Dream palette. The net weight is 19.25 grams or 0.67 ounces. And on the back we have all of the shades, and I'll talk more about the shades in a moment. We have the ingredients. This is made in Italy, not tested on animals. Has a 24-month shelf life, and it does have some application tips. So it says for matte shadows, apply with fluffy eyeshadow brushes to blend, or detail brushes for precision. Metallic / duochrome / chroma crystal eyeshadows, apply with dense eyeshadow brushes for a subtle finish. For high payoff foiled finish, apply with damp eyeshadow brushes or with the tip of your finger. And if you're not familiar with how I do my swatches, I do both finger swatches, I do dry brush swatches, and I also do damp brush swatches for the shimmers and metallics. These do contain talc, and it looks like they contain carmine as well. I know those ingredients are of concern to some people. Okay, so that's it for the back here. And like I said, we'll return to the shades. And this is what the palette looks like. It's kind of a muted peach color, beige almost. And the writing and these little splotches are actually kind of raised and textured. So it has kind of like an embossed finish on it, which is interesting. I know a lot of people kind of criticized the design of the palette. I just wanted to quickly pull out. So this Natasha Denona Glam palette, it's not raised in the same way. So that seems to be a new feature of this palette. So this is her midi size. It retails for $69, which is a slight price increase from the $65 they used to be. But I think that's a fair price increase considering inflation and everything like that. And if you've not tried any of her midi or I think larger palettes as well, they are easily removable on the back here. So I'll show you how that works in a moment. But if we open her up, this is what the shades look like. So it is an all plastic palette with the shades printed on it. And we do have a nice mirror with a cover that I'll probably leave on just for the sake of not having a reflection during swatching. But yeah, the shades are really beautiful in person. I don't know if you can catch that shift on the shade Vision, but it's really beautiful. So let's talk about the shades really quickly before we get into swatches. So there's been some confusion as to whether any of these are repeats. I can tell you that the Blackest Black shade used to be a single in Natasha Denona's line, and I think it was also in the Mini Xenon, but she didn't number it. So I've explained before, and I have a video about the quote-unquote exclusive Natasha Denona palettes over at BoxyCharm and kind of describing where all the shades in those palettes come from. But if you ever take a look at like the numbers on the back of the box here, you can see that for the most part, she numbered Blackest Black 439. So that's a new kind of number that she gave that shade, but from what I understand, the shade itself is existing. But then from there, the numbers pretty much kind of continue chronologically. So we go from 440, we'll skip over Serenity for a moment. I wasn't sure when I first saw that whether it was a typo, but we do have 441 here. So anyway, 440, 442, 41, 43, 44, so on. So the Serenity 114 DC shade is the other repeat, aside from Black is Black. And that is from the Natasha Denona Star palette. So I have, I guess, the original Star palette, and I kept it in its box, which comes in handy for this kind of information. You can see the shade Supernova is also 114 DC, just like the shade Serenity. So I will swatch those side by side. So my understanding is that she did reformulate this palette at one point, and then it now appears to be discontinued. So I guess we also have this is the older style of packaging where she has these plastic overlays and then the foam and all that, which I think I prefer kind of the direction she's going in now. But anyway, yeah, this Supernova shade is supposed to be the Serenity shade according to the numbers. Again, I don't think the formulas will be the same, and this is a pretty old palette at this point, but I will do a swatch comparison later in the video. I don't own either the Mini Xenon or the Black is Black palette. So aside from the difference in the way that she did the cover, this is pretty much the identical format to the other MIDI palettes that she's done. Like that's the Retro palette, the Love, the Glam, the Sunrise, and the Bronze. And from what I understand, other than those two shades, like I said, there are pretty much direct replicas. The way that she's explained it is that she kind of took her favorite existing shades and kind of reformulated them, played with textures and that kind of thing. So I think these are new shades technically. I think some of these might be inspired by previous shades. If you have any ideas for what the origins of these other shades are, and I happen to have the palette or the shade that you're referencing, I would be happy to do a swatch comparison over on my Instagram. So just put that in the comments down below. I'm sure there will be plenty of people out there who will try and do more kind of detailed swatch comparisons, but my videos are long enough, so I don't need to do that. But like I mentioned, this is the same form factor. So you saw I just popped out this shade, Vision. So it doesn't say on the back what the shade is from. If you wanted to create your own kind of custom palette, like I know Lauren May Beauty does a lot, and you can either take one of these existing palettes and just pop out all the shades and kind of mix and match and rearrange them, etc. I would highly recommend just writing the name of the shade on the back, especially if you have a sizable Natasha Denona collection, because I just feel like it'd be very easy to get confused. So you can either just write the name of the shade, or you can write like MDP from My Dream Palette, and then what would this be, shade 11? So you could do it in a few different ways, whatever is easiest for you. I'm not sure if you tried to print a label and paste it on the back, if it would stick, or if you use little stickers. I'm not sure how well the magnet would hold those, but I've definitely written on the back of palettes with like Sharpie pens, and it's fine. Okay, I think that's all the ground I need to cover kind of explaining the palette. So just to quickly kind of tell you about my tools and method. So like I said, I will do finger swatches. I like to use a primed arm because I always use an eyeshadow primer on my eyelids, so that's just the best way for me to judge kind of how a shadow performs. Otherwise, shadows of any quality tend to crease on me. So right now I'm using the Smashbox 24-hour primer. And then for brushes, the main brushes I use are the Rephr number 2, which is a natural hair little shader, kind of like the MAC 239. The current MAC 239 is synthetic, but anyway, same shape. So I use this for the matte shadows in addition to the finger swatches. And then for the metallics and foils and that kind of thing, I've been using the Rephr 21. I think this is a mix of natural and synthetic, if I recall. And this is very similar to the shape of the MAC 242, I believe. And then I also pulled out this one, which is a newer brush to my collection. This is the Refer number 28, and I find that sometimes it does a little better with certain formulas of shimmers. So this is almost kind of a hybrid between these two brushes in terms of its shape and composition. And like I said, I do damp brush swatches as well. So I have my Tarte Maracuja Miracle Mist. I have the Sigma Switch to clean off my brushes in between. I do have several duplicates like you saw, but that first shade, I feel like Natasha Denona is playing me because it's going in with Blackest Black right off the bat. So I'm not sure how well my brushes will do after that. And then to remove the swatches, I have a dampened makeup eraser. I might have to actually go wash my arm in between, but hopefully that will remove a lot of the shadow anyway. So if I recall, I think how Natasha Denona organizes her palettes is that you're kind of supposed to be able to do a complete eye look going in various directions. Like the shades are meant to kind of play well together. I think one of those directions is just each column. So I think I'm going to just do 3 shades at a time. I feel like I usually run out of room anyway, so that will hopefully serve me the best, especially if I'm doing kind of multiple types of application. I'll just have to wash my arm more often, that's all right. Okay, so this first shade, Blackest Black, this is 439 CM, which I think stands for Creamy Matte. I think that is what CM means. So this is a matte intense black. Ooh, feels very kind of creamy almost. So that is Blackest Black. We also have Instinct 443 CP. So this is our cream powder formula. This is also a matte and it's called a medium fuchsia. I think sometimes she uses this formula when a traditional matte would, I guess, be a little chalky. You can kind of see the difference in the pan, kind of, and on my fingers as well, kind of the difference in texture there, I think. I feel like I'm doing a lot of fun ones right off the bat. So this one is called Vision. This is 448 MC, which I believe is multichrome, maybe? So this is a multichrome metallic with shifts of green, pink, nude, and gold. I feel like this is the shade that a lot of people are going to be excited about. I mean, I never bought the, was it Trichrome palette? So I don't know that I've gotten a palette with a multichrome from Natasha Denona before. I guess I can kind of appreciate a multichrome, but I mean, that really went down the arm. I don't know if you've seen any of her Instagram swatches. And then, yeah. Really beautiful there. So far, no complaints. I have to say, just by way of, I guess, disclosure, I think Natasha Denona does make my absolute favorite eyeshadow formula. And I really do like this midi size. I think for me, it's a really good kind of balance of price point and size and number of shades. I mean, it's still a high-end palette, but you are getting 15 really good quality eyeshadows for half of what a Pat McGrath Mothership palette will cost you, roughly. So I'm just going to go in on the other side of the brush, hopefully kind of get some longevity out of these today. All right. And I will show you a close-up of how the shades look after swatching. So that is Instinct. And then with my dry 21 brush, let's see how this does. Okay. So yeah, definitely more of a wash, kind of a sparkly wash with just a dry brush. And as I said before, you can, when you're wetting a brush, you can either wet the brush and then go into the palette, or try to pick up product and then wet it. I always recommend checking to make sure whether the brand has kind of specified if you should use them damp or not, though. Because if they're not intended to be used damp, you run the risk of creating hard pan. Really beautiful shift on that, though. I think for me, damp or finger would probably be the best way to go. And as I've also said before, when you are applying a shade like this and you really want to kind of beef up the impact, you can kind of use a brush to get the outlines of where you want the shade, and then go in with your finger or a wet brush to kind of beef up the coverage or the opacity. So that is column 1. I've also said before that if you don't want to use your fingers, you can get those little sponge applicators that most people throw out of kind of quads and things when they come with them, but they do work really well with metallic shades. Okay, so that's what my arm looks like, just kind of wiping at it with a wet makeup eraser. She is not playing around with the pigment on that Blackest Black shade. And this, I'm just kind of using a micellar. Might have to go in with the big guns here. All right, so dish soap managed to do the trick here. So I do reapply primer. Obviously, you probably won't want to wash off your eye makeup with dish soap. So if you do have trouble with that shade, I would definitely recommend using a like waterproof makeup remover. And when you're applying, you probably want to do your eyes first in case you do have any fallout. Okay, so next column here, this is Aspiration. So again, this is a creamy matte, so same formula as the black. And this is a matte dark penny brown. So going in with my other matte brush. Oh, let's do a finger first here. I'm getting confused about my own process. All right, so this is Aspiration. Feels nice and smooth, especially for like a darker matte like this. Sometimes they do feel a little bit chalky. Next one is Thrill 444 DCS. I'm not sure what that means exactly. I think it is like a duochrome of some kind. So they call it a sparkling metallic duochrome golden nude with pink shift. So I think the other one was a multi-chrome and this one is a duochrome. I guess I see a tiny bit of like pink shimmer in there. It's not quite as multi-dimensional as the other one. And then Edgy is another cream powder. So this is 449 CP. It says cream powder matte medium dark eggplant. So this is going to be the same formula as that Instinct shade. And you can kind of see that as well. Okay, so we have Aspiration, Thrill, and Edgy. I'm not sure how much of a difference there really is between Edgy and Instinct. Let me go ahead and swatch this Aspiration shade before it just all flies off. So I do try to give the primer time to kind of set down. But just know that my canvas, if you will, must be somewhat affected by kind of the washing off and reapplication process. Okay, so let's go in with Thrill. So this is the dry brush. And then this is the damp brush. And then for this edgy shade, ooh, I have to admit the cream powder formulas are not my absolute favorite. You can see I kind of dug that one up a bit. So again, I kind of understand why she does it, but all right, on the back of my hand, I just really want to quickly swatch Instinct and Edgy. Yeah, there's a difference, but whether it was necessary to have both of those, I don't know. I mean, there's, again, kind of a difference in tone, I guess, but let's go into Vision and Thrill. Thrill seems a little bit kind of flakier than Vision as well. Vision seems to have a little bit more kind of opacity to it. And the two mattes that I've already swatched, I mean, one's clearly a black and one's clearly a dark brown. So whether it was, again, necessary to have both, I think there are plenty of people that will appreciate having both, but anyway. Okay, so for this middle row, we have Serenity. So this is the repeat shade. This is 114 DC Satin Medium Cool Brown. Which looks like so. Then we have Unity, which is 445 Creamy Matte. So that's a matte, medium, light pink nude. That'll probably be a good crease or transition shade. And then finally we have Spontaneous. So this is 450M. It's a metallic light pearl nude. So that is the middle row. Yeah, not super metallic. It really is more of a satin, I would say. And then we have Unity, which looks great, and Spontaneous. All right, so Serenity with the dry brush. It does seem a tad crumbly, but you know, I'm kind of going in a little bit more aggressively than you might just with your normal eyeshadow application, so I get, you know, enough product for a good swatch. And then I'll go ahead and do the dry brush swatch of Spontaneous. Okay, that one built up fairly well. Here is the wet brush of Serenity. Don't think a wet brush is really necessary for this type of shade, but so I wet the brush again, going into Spontaneous. Again, I think the dry brush built it up to just about the same intensity. I do have one more clean 02 brush. So I'm gonna break that out for some of these lighter shades. So going into Unity with a clean dry brush. That one has some kick up. Applies pretty well though. All right, so that is the third middle row. I might try to edit in a shot of all 15 swatches kind of lined up next to each other. But while my arm is drying off a bit, I'm going to swatch this shade right there, which is Supernova, against this one, which is Serenity. So that is the Star. That is the My Dream palette. I mean, color-wise, I'd say they are pretty spot on. Ooh. Both kind of crumbly there. Yeah, I mean, there aren't any differences. I'd say they're pretty slight. Okay, fourth row here. So we have Carpe Diem, which is 442 cm. This is, make sure I get some of the other shade off. This is a matte medium dusty peach. There is Risk 446M, which is a metallic medium maroon, which looks like so. And then finally we have Nurture, which is 451 cm, and that is a matte medium cool nude. So these mattes are both the creamy matte formula. I have a feeling I will reach for that shade a lot. Okay, so we have Carpe Diem, Risk, and Nurture. So first shade here, Carpe Diem. It's a great kind of crease shade for me anyway. And then the dry brush going into Risk. This one might take a little bit of building up if you want kind of the full opacity there. And then let's go back to Nurture. And then we need the wet brush of Risk. Yeah, I think you get kind of a more opaque payoff more quickly with a wet brush on that one. All right, final row, we have Babies 441M. This is a metallic light medium rosy nude, which looks very pretty. The next one is Invention. This is 447 DCS. So this is another sparkling metallic duochrome. This one is Tangerine with bronze and golden sparks. I have to say, there's something very kind of eye-catching about this shade. I don't know how often I'll actually wear it. And then we finally have Familia, which is 452 cm, which is a matte medium camel brown. So that is the final column there. All right, so we want Babies. That one is really great. Let's see, Invention. I feel like I'm getting my swatches all kind of jumbled together. And then this one is Familia. And again, same caveat that I'm removing these swatches, washing my arm, and then reapplying primer. So let me know if you guys would prefer to see these swatches without primer. I know I did some on the back of my hand. Those were all without primer. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and swatch the matte shade, Familia. Probably wanna kind of tap off your brush to get rid of any excess. But yeah, I think that looks like it does apply very well with the brush. And then to swatch babies with a dry brush here. This is a very kind of foily shade, it looks like. You can tell in the texture where you can almost see like brush strokes. So it seems like it has a very kind of heavy silicone type formula. Yeah, so that's a dry brush. I kind of like that texture. A lot of the shadows in the new Lorac formula are like that, and I think some of the shades in the Huda Beauty palettes are as well. Some people prefer kind of a thinner texture though. They don't mind if something's a little bit more on the flaky side like this one. All right, so this Invention shade is just giving me trouble. Let's see if a damp brush does the trick. Not really. I have a feeling this is going to be the kind of shadow that you just want to kind of tap over the middle of the lid. I guess I still need to do this other shade, don't I? So, damp brush going into Babies. I'd say it kind of blends out. It's a little smoother with the wet brush. I don't know if I just picked up more product when I was going in for the dry brush, but the spray might kind of help it smooth out and blend a little bit. So that is the final row. So I'm just going to give this Invention shade kind of another shot, if you will. So what happens? So that's just kind of a finger swatch. Yeah, I don't know if there was something going on with the finger I was using to swatch it, but that is what it looks like. And just for reference, I will swatch the other kind of duo and multi-chrome shades, and I'll just swatch Spontaneous as well. Spontaneous, I think, has the same kind of texture as Babies. They feel very similar anyway. Yeah, I think that Thrill shade is a lot thinner. I guess I can see the flash a little bit more now. My hand is a little bit more mobile than my arm. So let's go ahead and I have some space here. So I'll do, I guess, Serenity and Babies. You can see all the metallics. Yeah, you can see that Serenity shade is much less reflective. But look at that Babies shade. Okay, so I think that's all I really need to cover here. Obviously we have some fallout. Let me zoom you guys in. All right, so that's how the palette looks after my swatching endeavors. Yeah, I think you can definitely see where I was kind of digging into the shade a little bit more, which ones have kick up, which ones don't so much, and you can definitely see the texture of those two like cream powder formulas. So for my experience just swatching the palette, this seems to be consistent with Natasha Denona's usual quality. Of course, we would expect nothing less at this price point. And color-wise, I'd say, I don't know if it will supplant the glam in my affections, but as far as, I guess, the other recent ones that she has released, I do have a full swatching video of the retro. If you would care to see that kind of video. I don't know which one I actually like better. I think the glam is probably still my favorite because I'm boring. I think this is an interesting color story, and it's not something that she has quite done before. So let me know what your favorite midi palette is, and if you're thinking of picking this one up. I think it's definitely a very solid palette if you think you'll get a lot of use out of it. I think price point wise, like I said, it's definitely up there, but I think the usability of these palettes and the way that you can kind of mix and match them kind of helps with the value. And you know, there's no shame in waiting for the Sephora VIB sale, or I know Natasha Denona usually does a pretty good sale around Black Friday. So no shame in waiting for a sale to get this palette either. So that's going to do it. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you found it helpful, please do subscribe down below. I hope you guys are all doing well and staying safe, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.